Wait, you want to see my girlfriend?
Oh yeah, take the photos and the camera.
Yo.
It's camera and
Yo.
okay.
Yo, he was like, what is this in my hand? It's a GoPro camera. So I didn't have it on. He told me, can't go take a photo in front of Spires. I'm like, I was recording me grocery shop. Oh, look, you got to show y'all. Are you single? Want me to promote you? He's single, looking for someone.
I can see this one, my photos.
Yeah. Check him out at Four Ways, y'all. It's another beautiful day here in sunny South Africa. Oh wait, I'm in the shade. Should I step in the sun, yeah?
Yeah, okay.
Let's go. Look at you. Where? You gonna pull me over on the side, yeah? Look, it's kind of like a shadow. Let me see. It's real bright. You can't see good. So I'm just waiting on my to-go order, y'all, before I head back to Rosebank side. Yes, it's about 45 minutes from Four Ways. Both beautiful areas throughout Joburg that I highly recommend you guys to check out if you were to give South Africa a visit. So, what's your name?
Richard.
Richard.
Yes.
Where are you from, Richard?
Now from Burundi.
Burundi?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, what?
I'm coming from the States. Have you heard of Mississippi before?
Alright.
So I'm a deep down south. Yo, I saw Mississippi Valley even performing at Trump's inauguration yesterday. Why y'all ain't get Jackson State or Mississippi State too? I'm just curious, you know. Or even Alcorn. Those are like the top three, especially when it comes to bands and performance throughout Mississippi. But we love Mississippi Valley State too. But definitely I'm surprised they didn't pull one of those top three since I'm from Mississippi and I'm a Mississippi native. But
Okay.
all right, y'all. Let me pause for a bit and I'm just waiting to get my to-go order and then I will talk to you guys later, okay? And I said what's funny, I was gonna do this video, excuse me, y'all, sorry, somebody just walked by. I was gonna do this video pertaining to just like dating in general. People are like, how is it in America versus like abroad or in Africa? I'm like, you guys, there's certain things that apply across the globe no matter where you go that you could just take along with you as far as safety tips. So I'm gonna wait on my to-go order and then I can talk about that a little bit once I get back to my place. So I'm gonna see you guys later. Wanna say bye?
Oh, bye.
Bye?
Bye.
Yeah. Hey y'all, so I just got back to my Airbnb and tossed my groceries and whatnot to the side. So I said I was gonna talk a little bit about, this is so cringe for me, y'all, because usually I never talk about stuff like this. So when it comes to like just dating, whether if you're in America or versus abroad, like a lot of people kind of ask me that in passing. Y'all know I'll sit and talk to anybody, male, woman, and we just chat about several things in general. And a lot of people are like, well, how do you feel about dating like in the US versus like abroad? So I'm like, honestly, it's like certain things, no matter where you go in life, like I said prior, you can just take it with you, especially if you're like a woman. That being like, if you know you're going to be traveling, whether if it's like to another state or you're going to be traveling like to another country, you can always do your due diligence and do a little bit of research to kind of know where it is you're going, safety things, emergency contacts if you need to notify anyone, things like this. No matter where I go, whether if I'm in the States or I'm on the African continent now, wherever I go, whether if the area is even deemed, let's say if it's like a quote unquote area where typically if it's called like a suburb or it's deemed safe, generally people tend to let their guard down, right? And common sense goes out of the window where they start getting careless, like, oh, well, the area is safe, so I'll just leave my door unlocked. Or the area is safe, so I'll just leave my car door unlocked. So whether the area is deemed safe or not, I still always do common sense things, like always lock your door, always lock your car door. Be aware of your surroundings. Like, don't just, sometimes I may have like one headphone in, but typically if I'm like walking outside, no, I never usually do that. So simple things like that. Always trust your instincts. If you're a woman, I promise you have an intuition, it's there. Sometimes we don't listen to it. 2, always be aware of your surroundings. And 3, if need be, if it gets down to the point where you have to like defend yourself, always have the means to do that. Meaning that have something on you, that being like a taser or pepper spray. Or if you're from where we from, we're from the South, we're from the conservative states. So all of us have guns, or we go to a gun range. Only as far as like safety aspect, not just shooting everybody willy nilly, but only in the means of safety if you need to protect yourself as far as like self defense, right? And make sure you know how to use it, whether if it's like the taser or pepper spray, or take some self-defense classes, because you never just know in today's society. For me, just looking at statistics across the globe and meeting so many people across the globe and hearing about certain things that I wasn't even aware of that could be like a major issue in certain countries. So I'll just say that when it comes to just like dating or safety tips in general, let me just give you guys an example. So let's just take India, for example, right? There was a time where New Delhi, India, right? The country India, right, was considered like the rape capital of the world. A lot of people are oblivious to that because everyone sees them as like the model minority. Let's say if you're going from India to like the States, and then we hear about certain stories on news outlets that pretty much make global news, and it's like, wow, we didn't know there was a major issue there, right? For example, in recent, and I'll probably include a few photos in this vid, there was a Brazilian couple, and they were notorious for like pretty much just travel. They travel from country to country. They even stopped in Pakistan, I believe, and ran into the Taliban before they got to India. They traveled over like 60 countries, just to give you guys an example. And they stopped, took photos with the Taliban, and they were completely safe. But again, since it's like a male-dominated society, they were surprised to see a woman just doing something as simple as riding a bike. But again, their norm is, their norm and our norm is our norm. In our countries, of course, our women, we can ride bikes, we can drive, we can do whatever. But to them, when they were stopped by the Taliban, for example, while they were in Pakistan, they were like amazed to see a woman just simply on a bike driving it, But still, they were relatively safe after they left Pakistan. Then they went into India. They ran into this gang of guys who kind of just like, how do you just, I guess, not interrogated them, or you could just tell like when the energy in the room shifts, it shifts, and take heed to that. So long story short, from what she and her husband said on various news outlets and reports, once this made global news, for example, they were looking for somewhere that they can stay the night. They were going to set up a tent or set up shop somewhere where they can stay. And then this group of guys approached this woman and male. Again, they're a married couple. And they pretty much was just really like unruly, sticking their hands in their food. And they felt uncomfortable. And the wife, she knew her intuition. She was telling her husband, I don't think we should sleep here tonight, right? So they kept traveling. Unfortunately, the husband did not listen to his wife, and they went back to that same campsite in spite of running into that gang of guys where she knew something wasn't right. And again, the way they approached them, just pretty much telling that, something's not right here, right? And especially when they even like had the audacity to stick their hand in that couple's food, I think it was just nuts or something of that nature. So they go back to that same spot, even though the wife was like, I don't think we should stay here. Long story short, what ended up happening, that same gang of guys came back, brutally gang-ard or raped his wife in front of him. It was like 7+ men, and it pretty much made global news. So even though she wasn't traveling by herself, because we hear oftentimes where people will say, oh, as a woman, you should never travel by yourself. It's not safe. But again, she wasn't even by herself. She was actually with her husband at the time. And the unthinkable still happened, even though she wasn't even by herself. And those guys, of course, they caught all the guys who did it and so forth. But again, this like, even for someone like me, I would never travel to a country like India by myself. Don't get me wrong. I'm like the type of person that could go anywhere. And like I told you, I implement any safety tips that I typically implement wherever I go in life. But I even know for someone like me, just knowing that that's like a major issue in countries like that, I would never go or be that, bold to like go somewhere where I know that that's a major issue, and especially where places like that where it tends to get swept under the rug. Also in recent news in India, there was a doctor who in Kolkata, I believe in India, and she simply just went on a break, and a security guard at the hospital she was working at while she was on break brutally assaulted her. And after they investigated more, and she had several broken bones and she was unalived, of course. It sparked global outrage again because this is a major problem in India. So much to the point where, again, where this is unfortunately the norm, and where even you have women who make the problem worse because they tend to help sweep it under the rug, or they turn a blind eye, or it's in cultures where it's embedded that if that happens to a woman, they're pretty much shamed for it and blamed for it in certain societies, unfortunately, where this happens. So after protests regarding this happening to that doctor, and them trying to like cover it up, and they're believing it wasn't just that security guard at the hospital that brutally R-ed that doctor. They're thinking it was definitely another gang R word. I have to say R word because, you know, the censorship on YouTube. So that's why, you guys, I'm kind of toggling with my verbiage here. And the chief minister, who's a woman, again, which it was just mind-boggling. It's like the people felt like she played a role in like this being kind of trying to be swept under the rug, so to speak. So they were asking her to step down and resign. So sometimes, you know, even when it comes to when we talk about trafficking, people sometimes forget, even though it's mainly women being trafficked, but what makes matters worse is oftentimes women who help men have other girls trafficked. Does that make sense? So sometimes people will see a woman and think, oh, she's innocent, but sometimes when it comes to like these gangs or groups of people who are traffickers, they tend to also use a woman to help, you know, whoever it is that they're targeting get from point A to point B. And there'll be people that you least expect. Also, I'm going to include a little drop down link. I remember this infamous YouTuber, and it went viral. And she also was talking about her experience when she was in India, for example, how she was pretty much harassed, or while in her hotel room, they were pretty much trying their best to get her to come outside of her hotel room, even so much to the point where they were messing with her Wi-Fi connections or her phone. She couldn't call them when she can dial out, and she kind of goes more in detail, but I include like a photo if you guys want to go check that out for yourselves, or her just detailing her experience there. So I think too, when it comes to tech, especially people who have these tech jobs where this happens too often, where they learn how to do this, that, and the third, or even hacking per se, and too often we hear stories of where they don't use it for good. Does that make sense? They need to do some sort of like regulation as far as people who obtain certain tech jobs, because too often I hear outside of like their scope of practice, they tend to use it to do things like this, you know, whether if it's hacking someone's phone or mirroring someone's phone or messing with someone's network and so forth, in ways that you can't even possibly imagine, unfortunately, right? Let's see, what else, you guys? Hold on, I'm scrolling. Dating apps. Let's also talk about that, right? I've never in my life used a dating app. If my picture is ever on a dating app, someone probably didn't hack my shit or something, because I'm not the type of person to ever in my life use a dating app, right? So I know people in today's society do, and some reason, some Ukraine dating shit advertisement keeps popping up in my emails, and I have no idea why, because again, I don't use dating apps and never will. So I would say this regarding people who use like Bumble or dating apps or whatever. Also, I always remember like the typical sense. I was talking to someone in general, and they were telling me, I'm not going to say what country it's from, because I don't want people, because I know whenever you mention that, too often people will be like, oh, that's how all the men in that place think. I'm like, no, there's just that one individual I was talking to. So I'm not going to say what country he was from. But he was telling me in general, whenever he first meets a girl, it's very common or very easy for them to go straight back to their house on the first day or first date. And that's just their culture. And I feel like that's not your culture. I think that's just like a norm you tend to do, because, well, for us, where we were raised, that's a big no-no, right? And I see people make that mistake too often on various dating apps, where they go home with this guy that they don't know, they just met, or it could be the other way around, or women, because I've heard horror stories on behalf of men as well, when they go home with these women sometimes, and lo and behold, they don't realize, again, some of these women are connected to like gangs and stuff like that, and they end up setting these guys up, getting them robbed, getting them whatever else, and the most unthinkable ends up happening to them as well. So it could be women or men, unbiased to both sides, right? So typically we hear too often where a girl would like go home, or a guy would go home with someone on the first date, and then they end up being assaulted, or they end up being unalive. So a big safety tip that we tell people: you never go home to someone or go to a secluded area for a person you just met for a first time, right? Always go to a public setting. Always let someone know where you are, whether if it's a friend, a family member, or let me give you an example. Whenever I would travel on my travel contracts and go state to state, I always send like a group of people who are also military in my family, right? Letting them know exactly where I am, where I'm staying. And let's say if you're going on a date, make sure you take a picture of what that person looks like. Take a picture of like their license plate or their vehicle, or take a picture of like their driver's license or something. And if you notice certain red flags on a date, don't just hop in the car or be pressured into going home with someone that you know you may not be comfortable with. So those are just typical safety dating tips if you guys are utilizing those apps, because I see people are still using it. And too often where we come from in the States, every time we hear these people use these apps, they go with this guy and they get brutally dismembered, or they get unalived, or they get raped, which is the R word, right? So we hear that happen way, way too often. So that's just like safety tips for people who I see that continuously use these apps in today's society, you know. I already told you guys some safety tips. I could give you guys an example. When I was in Ohio, my own example, right? Just showing you like those safety tips that I just going into play in real life, in real time. So I was leaving a Walmart while I was in Ohio. I was doing a travel assignment at the time. I was coming from Texas to Ohio, and you guys, I did a drive. It's like 14-minute drive. I'm a driver, right? And a few nights while I was staying there, again, you guys, Walmart's a grocery store for you guys that don't know. It's a common grocery store that's back in the States for people who are like maybe tuning in from different countries. And again, your intuition, like I told you guys, when I first walked in the store, I felt okay, but on my way out, I felt like something's off, something's wrong, something doesn't feel right, right? So of course, I'm just like scanning, looking at the parking lot, looking left, right, up, down, heading back to my car after I grabbed some groceries. And lo and behold, when I got closer to my car, I noticed this blue truck that was tinted windows that wasn't there prior to me entering the store. But granted, I'm like, okay, somebody could have easily just like, you know, came there sometime after I already parked, right? But again, something in my intuition was like, something's off here. And I just so happened to look while I'm putting my stuff in my car after I grabbed my groceries. I looked down at this man's license plate, and it was completely duct taped. Like, not even him having it like scratched off. He had like a massive piece of like duct tape, so that way you can't see what his license plate number was. And again, when I saw that, he saw that I'm paying attention, so he wasn't so quick to hop out of his car. Not only was he waiting for me to come back to my car, he was also sitting in the driver's side of the car. But again, since he saw I was paying attention and I pulled my gun out, I still took pictures and sent it immediately to anybody that was close to me. And I also sent it to a police information specialist that was also in the area, just in case if something came about that, where if it was a means of like trafficking or something like that. And I'm gonna kind of like show you guys a picture of like my car is white, and then you'll see the blue truck. So I'll send you guys a photo. Well, I'll include a photo in this so I can give you guys a little bit of an idea of what I'm referring to. So pretty much it's like he was gonna try to block me from the front of my car, and then I just so happened to also turn to my backside, and I saw like other people that were sitting in their cars. So at first I was like, wait, are you guys seeing this guy with his duct tape tag? But again, if you know how trafficking works, they always have a group of people and have someone on the lookout, meaning that all of those people were in the same group together, meaning that they were going to try to block me from the front and then block me from the back. But again, since they saw I clearly was paying attention, and they pulled my gun out, not a single one of them dared get out of the truck. And all of them were white. Just again, it could be people you least expect it to be. All of them are white. The girls in the back were white, and then the guy in the driver's side was also like an older white guy, But again, sometimes I can say older, but sometimes white guys can look a lot older than what they are. So he could have been like 30s, but he could have been like 50s, but definitely older white guy with like a beard, and his grayed out and stuff. And I purposely drove out by the driver's side because again, I'm not scared of anyone. Just to get a good look at what he looked like. And again, since he wasn't expecting, I think sometimes too, if you're like sweet, naive, people will think that you're naive or you're like oblivious to what could possibly be happening around you, but I pay attention to everything, even when you least expect it. And so I drove by the driver's side just so I get a good description of what he looked like. And he was trying to like turn his head and rolled up the car window and such. And again, when it comes to that, it also is important for whatever county or area it is that you reside in at the time. If you're in the hands of like good police, Because again, like I said, when I sent that to the police specialist, just to be safety wise, they never followed up. They didn't do shit. But if it was in a county somewhere like where it's like Sheriff Judd down there in Polk County in Florida, that would have been a different story. They would at least took heed to it, especially if you have proof and sent photos and actually reached out to like a police information specialist and so forth. So also that also plays a role into what happens in regards to prosecuting crime like that. If you're in the hands of like a good policing, district, I would say that. And I will also say this, when it comes to just dating in general, I had the pleasure, I think a lot of you guys already know a good bit about me at this point, and you know why, okay? But I will say this, I had the pleasure of being raised by like really, really great men, that being my grandfather, which would be my mom. I showed you guys a picture of my mom on a previous vid. I don't know if you haven't seen it, you could go watch it. It was when I was in Cape Town. Beautiful black woman, of course, and my mom's dad, that would be my grandfather, right? And great person, right? He's from the Delta of Mississippi. And I also had the pleasure of being raised by my stepfather, which is my oldest brother's birth father, who's from Memphis, Tennessee. Both great men and taught me a lot since I was a kid. I would just say that. So I think a lot of you guys don't realize that. They were like, well, how is she okay? How is she fine? Because I think all of you already know this. Compared to like my stepfather, my grandfather, when it comes to my birth father, I have no relationship at all whatsoever with him, right? And again, my stepfather that I just mentioned raised me from the time I was an infant, when I was born, all the way up to him passing while I was in college. And yeah, unfortunately, that's why I was in college. But that's somebody who I always wanted to pay back in life, because I wouldn't be the person I am today if it wasn't for like great men or great women like that in my life from the time I was a child all the way up to me being 29 years old. So you ever heard that saying when they typically say it takes a village to raise a child? That is very, very true. Not just your immediate household, but also when you start experiencing and going out into the world, your environment, your schools, what you're doing in the streets. And who you like take from certain people that you meet while you journey through life. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of people that played a role into me being the person that I am today. So, but yeah, so I'll just leave that there. And I'm interested to see you guys' perspective on this topic. And also as far as statistics, I put like a few descriptions because I was even surprised here. But I was just talking to like regular people here that are in South Africa where I am now currently, and they were telling me how like, there's a lot of assaults and everything that typically happen. And when I looked at some statistics online, compared to like, when you look at global statistics, and again, I was surprised to even see that they say that South Africa is like the highest compared to any other country across the globe to be the highest when it comes to assaults or rapes regarding that of like women. So, but overall, I kid you not, since I've been here though, I have felt very, very safe. But I also am very aware of important things like that as well, as far as like statistics and speaking to locals on issues and stuff like that, So, but like I said, whether if you're in an area that's deemed safe or not safe, always take those basic need to know, basic safety tips wherever you go in life, whether if it's an area that's deemed so-called safe or not. So I'll just say that, okay? But anyways, like, comment, subscribe. You guys are almost at 1,000 subs. Almost, okay? And it's been a few days since I uploaded, okay? I usually, like I said, I'm not gonna upload every day, maybe like every 2 to 3 days, okay? And like, comment, subscribe, and let me know you guys' thoughts, and I will talk to you guys later, okay? Bye.